Day after day, we are surrounded by the presence of criminals. We are spectators to the deepest darkness in human actions and the bizarre reality that someone's suffering can be a form of pleasure. As dedicated investigators of the criminal world, we're on a mission to uncover the most shocking crimes and get inside the minds of those who commit them. I am Luke, and today I bring you another unreal true crime. The unbelievable case of Mary Yoder. In the small town of Whitesboro, New York, lived Mary Yoder, vibrant 60-year-old chiropractor who defied her age with her exuberant spirit and meticulous attention to health through exercise and diet, serving as a role model for her patients. She believed firmly in demonstrating that age shouldn't be a barrier to wellness. At her university years, she met her future husband, William Yoder, a fellow chiropractic student. Their mutual passion led to marriage. Together, they embarked on a joint venture, establishing a chiropractic clinic. William, with his methodical and pragmatic approach, managed the business aspects, while Mary, known for her engaging personality, handled patient care, earning their clinic a reputable status. The Yoders were blessed with 3 children, 2 daughters, Leanna and Tamarin, and their cherished son, Adam. By 2015, Adam, 25 years old, was working as a receptionist at the family clinic. His partner, Caitlin Conley, also employed there, came from a disciplined background as the daughter of a retired military officer. Known for her kindness, intelligence, and love for animals, Caitlin was a beloved member of the team. However, not all was perfect in the Yoder household. Despite plans for a leisurely retirement traveling across Europe, financial obligations meant continued work for Mary and William. On a fateful Monday, July 20, 2015, Mary's day was packed with appointments. But as the afternoon unfolded, patients began noticing something off about Mary's usual demeanor. Initially presenting with red, swollen eyes, she shrugged it off as a minor flu symptom. However, things escalated when her skin took on a greenish hue, and she began suffering from severe vomiting and diarrhea, leading her to call William for assistance. Upon his arrival, William was shocked to find Mary in a state of apparent shock, a stark contrast to her usually robust health. Despite her condition, Mary initially resisted hospitalization, opting for home remedies and rest. However, by the next morning, her condition had worsened significantly, prompting an urgent visit to the emergency room. There she underwent intense treatment, including IV fluids, to combat her unrelenting symptoms. Despite the efforts of numerous specialists, the cause of her sudden illness remained a mystery, leaving Mary in a state of fear and confusion. On the morning of July 22, Mary had her first cardiac arrest, followed by 7 more. By the afternoon, she couldn't hold on any longer, and she died. This all happened in the blink of an eye. A woman who always looked healthy deteriorated in just 48 hours and died in a hospital in the worst possible condition. This death seemed very suspicious to Mary's relatives because many of them belonged to the medical field. They started thinking in poisoning as an option, so they immediately requested toxicology tests on the body. At first, the doctors were skeptical about the idea because who would want to poison Mary? This only happens in movies. Mary was so careful that she grew part of her food in her garden, like lettuces. So the first doubt was that maybe an insect from there bit her and caused all this. But what kind of insect could do that? The toxicology tests revealed that Mary was indeed poisoned. First, they tested for arsenic and cyanide, which are the most common poisons in these cases. But no, it didn't seem she was poisoned with those. It wasn't until 2 months later that the lab identified what ended Mary's life. It was colchicine. Colchicine is a medication used for gout as it helps to remove uric acid from the joints, which causes this painful inflammation. But if used excessively, it can remove everything from your body. Mary experienced all the visible symptoms of a colchicine overdose, and probably also the invisible ones, like intense burning sensations on the skin and in the throat. This is one of the worst ways to die, and undoubtedly the question now was that it's clear Mary wanted to keep living, so who wanted to end her life? So it seems that someone deliberately poisoned her, especially since dying from this medication requires consuming a large amount. It couldn't have been an accident, and Mary wasn't taking this drug for any medical reason. After the case was declared a homicide, the police began their investigation, and the first suspect, as one might suspect and as often happens in such cases, was her husband, William. This could be yet another story where the victim's partner, driven by jealousy or an affair, becomes the perpetrator. Mary's sisters noticed that William was acting unusually, not appearing genuinely upset or saddened. However, in the absence of concrete evidence and after thorough interrogation, William was released due to insufficient grounds for charges, leaving the investigation at a standstill. Then, in a plot twist reminiscent of a thriller film, an anonymous letter surfaced at the police department. The author claimed to have knowledge of the real perpetrator, Adam Yoder, Sarah's youngest son. The letter didn't just make baseless accusations, it provided potentially damning evidence. It alleged that Adam had poisoned Mary's supplements with colchicine, motivated by a strained relationship and either a desire for inheritance or a twisted plan to gain sympathy and favor in her will. Acting on this tip, the police approached Adam's van without a warrant, but with his consent. To everyone's shock, a search revealed a bottle of colchicine under the passenger seat, along with a receipt bearing Adam's personal details. Stunned and proclaiming innocence, Adam insisted he was being framed. The situation was perplexing for the police as well, given the cinematic nature of the anonymous tip and the fact that Adam had been traveling out of state at the time of Mary's illness, which seemingly ruled out the possibility of him administering the poison. The mystery deepened as it became apparent that only two individuals had been in close proximity to Mary on the day of her illness: William and Caitlin Conley, Adam's girlfriend. This revelation cast new doubts and opened up further avenues of investigation in a case that seemed to be straight out of a suspense novel. Caitlin was the only one who had been with Mary throughout that day, but the police did not consider her a suspect initially because there seemed to be no motive for her to do such a thing. Moreover, she appeared to get along well with Mary. After Mary's death, Caitlin had even dedicated a post expressing her deep sorrow. However, Caitlin had recently ended her relationship with Adam, and there were a few things about her that didn't quite add up to the police. Thus, they concluded that Caitlin either knew something nobody else did or she was the guilty party. During the interrogation, Caitlin began by suggesting that Adam had been acting a bit strange lately. The interrogator, skilled at his job, asked the crucial question: whether Caitlin had recently written an anonymous letter accusing Adam, forgetting to add her name before sending it to the police. Initially, Caitlin tried to evade the question but ultimately confessed to writing the letter, shifting her status from a witness to a suspect. Now there were three suspects. She claimed that Adam had confessed to her, but her account was riddled with inconsistencies and contradictions, likely a result of the immense pressure she was under. Caitlin also expressed a deep-seated fear of Adam, leading the police to provide her with protection as they delved deeper into the investigation. A crucial piece of evidence emerged when it was discovered that the email address on the colchicine receipt had never been used by Adam. This revelation came from tracking the IP address associated with the email, which led to Caitlin's home computer and phone. Confronted with this evidence, Caitlin initially suggested that Adam might have used her devices without her knowledge. However, This theory was weakened when investigators uncovered that not only had the purchase been made through her phone, but her search history also contained incriminating searches about poisons before Mary's death. Furthermore, Caitlin eventually confessed to buying the prepaid cards used for the purchase. The interrogation reached a climax with the revelation that Caitlin either acted alone or with an accomplice, as the gathered evidence pointed directly to her involvement. Overwhelmed, Caitlin broke down, facing the reality of being arrested for the murder of Mary Yoder. Meanwhile, the Yoder family and community were shaken by the unfolding events. Mary's sisters had harbored suspicions about Adam, their reasons anchored in a combination of hearsay and conjecture. Also, neighbors reported seeing William intimately close with one of Mary's sisters prior to her death, fueling rumors of an affair that could have begun before Mary's untimely demise. They also labeled William a fortune hunter, pointing to Mary's role as the main financial provider in the family. The sisters speculated that William, eager for retirement, saw Mary's death as a means to secure his financial future, especially considering a recent inheritance from his father that was insufficient for both of them to retire comfortably. This theory painted William as a man who orchestrated his wife's murder to ensure his own financial stability. At Caitlin's trial, her defense team pointed fingers at William, suggesting he could have easily tampered with Mary's supplements before leaving the house and had access to the work computer that Caitlin used. Other defenders accused both William and Adam. On this side were Mary's three sisters, who were so convinced of this theory that they created a website called Free Caitlin Conley, outlining their reasons for believing William and Adam were the culprits. However, there were doubts about this theory as well. For instance, one of the sisters claimed to have seen William using colchicine in the past, supposedly for his herb cultivation. But when asked when they last saw him doing this, they said it was in the 1980s, casting doubt on their credibility. Now, the origin of the colchicine used in the crime was a critical point of investigation. There were two potential sources. Firstly, it could have been procured from the stock at the Yoder Family Chiropractic Center. Both Mary and Adam were known to sign for deliveries, and the colchicine was used in treatments at the clinic. William could also access the center through his keys, so he could have easily obtained it. However, Caitlin, as the business administrator who oversaw all materials and financial matters, had even greater access to the clinic's resources. The second possibility was an online purchase. This scenario seemed to implicate Adam due to the receipt details, but also raised suspicions about Caitlin, particularly since the purchase involved a phone call where the operator recalled speaking with a young woman. Despite this, Mary's sisters insisted that Adam had manipulated not only the police and the judge, but also the operator, a claim that appeared implausible given that the receipt listed Adam, a male, as the purchaser. This web of accusations and counter-accusations added layers of complexity to the case. Regarding the IP addresses that traced back to Caitlin's devices, there were theories about William's potential involvement. Some speculated that, despite not being tech-savvy, William was intelligent enough to manipulate computers to his advantage. However, this notion was met with skepticism, as basic computer skills do not equate to the expertise required for such deception. On the other hand, Adam, being younger and potentially more tech-literate, might have had the capability to use Caitlin's devices for the purchases. Yet, the idea that he meticulously orchestrated the crime through Caitlin's devices, while using his own email with identifiable information for the transaction, and then carelessly left the incriminating receipt in his car, seemed highly improbable. This scenario was likened to a thief meticulously erasing all evidence at a crime scene, only to leave behind a note with their full identity and birth certificate. The intricacies and contradictions within these theories made the investigation exceptionally convoluted and challenging to resolve. As for Caitlin's involvement, it's hard to discern why she would commit such a crime. Looking at the dynamics between Caitlin and Adam, they had a toxic relationship with frequent breakups and reconciliations. Adam, known to struggle with alcohol and drug abuse, had been aggressive towards Caitlin on several occasions, including an allegation of sexual assault in 2014. Adam also had trouble finding stable employment and was not very responsible in his job at the clinic. Before Mary's death, she had started to become stricter about giving him money, adding to the complexity of the relationships within this family. Mary's sisters' contributions were also met with some skepticism. They alleged that following Mary's death, William and Adam were frequently seen together, hinting at possible collusion. However, it's a natural tendency for family members to seek solace in each other's company during times of grief, making this observation not necessarily indicative of guilt. The website created by Mary's sisters, filled with extensive text and purported evidence, didn't automatically lend credence to their theories. The sisters also questioned Adam's innocence because he brought a lawyer to his police interrogation, unlike Caitlin. This action, however, could be interpreted as a prudent move, especially considering Adam discovered a purchase of colchicine in his name in his car. The situation was rife with tangled suspicions and accusations, complicating the search for the truth. In legal contexts, having a lawyer present during interrogation is generally advisable. Caitlin initially faced questioning as a witness before her arrest. Her interrogation raised red flags when she made seemingly incriminating statements, like suggesting that poison is typically a woman's weapon, leading to accusations against her. The investigator countered this by rightly stating that poison could be used by anyone, challenging her line of reasoning. Caitlin's emotional reactions during interrogation, characterized by expressions of despair and feeling trapped, are often associated with individuals realizing the gravity of their situation, a behavior similar to that exhibited by notable criminal figures. The decision to grant William immunity during the trial raised eyebrows. Granting immunity means he could not be prosecuted for Mary's death, a move that might seem unfair to some. However, immunity carries risks. If the individual is found to be lying, it significantly undermines their credibility and can turn them into a prime suspect. In contrast to Caitlin's inconsistent responses, both Adam and William presented less contradictory accounts during their interrogations, adding another layer of complexity to an already intricate case. The motives for the murder could vary. Caitlin was with Mary every day, and Mary was her boss. Hatred towards a boss is a common sentiment, often kept hidden, so Caitlin's Facebook post mourning Mary doesn't necessarily prove her innocence. Some theorize that Caitlin committed the crime to reconcile with Adam. Despite his aggressive nature, there's evidence suggesting Caitlin often sought reconciliation with Adam. After Mary's death, they did get back together for a time, but then separated again. Interestingly, the anonymous letter accusing Adam arrived at the police around the time of their breakup. Determining the guilty party was not easy, and the trial took a long time. Finally, on November 6, 2017, Caitlin Conley was sentenced to 23 years in prison with the possibility of parole in May 2037. To this day, there are those who believe this was an injustice. If one looks at the case superficially and emotionally, it might seem that William had every motive to commit the crime. But evidence must guide case resolutions. William appears innocent, or at least seems so, because his actions are consistent with his psychological profile of being a serious person, among other things. In complex cases like this, where emotions and suspicions run high, it's the hard evidence that ultimately leads to the resolution. In complex criminal cases, similar to those often featured in true crime narratives, a recurring theme is the presence of high levels of narcissism in the perpetrators, with the notable exception of serial killers and similar profiles. In the trial involving the mysterious death of Mary Yoder, William, her husband, displayed notable attentiveness towards their son Adam, acknowledging the emotional toll the case had taken on him. However, Williams' involvement with his deceased wife's sister raised eyebrows, marking it as socially inappropriate behavior. Talking about Adam, there were certain aspects of his behavior and history that seemed to indicate a lack of sound judgment. This was inferred from his public interviews, known issues with aggression and alcohol, and a tendency towards impulsive actions. These traits suggested that devising a complex, calculated plan, such as sending an incriminating letter in his own name, was out of character for him. Conversely, Caitlin's psychological profile appeared to align more closely with the crime's nature. She demonstrated a self-centeredness that fit the typical profile of such perpetrators. Moreover, her intricate involvement in the case, particularly in accusing Adam, raised questions about her methods. Why resort to an anonymous letter and a convoluted scheme instead of directly contacting the police? It seemed likely that she was aware of the insufficient evidence against Adam and thus orchestrated a more elaborate plot. The investigators' observation that criminals often commit offenses under the belief that they won't get caught resonates in this context. Many believe they have devised an infallible plan and consider themselves more clever than others. This overestimation of one's intelligence is a common trait among criminals, but as this case demonstrated, their plans often unravel spectacularly. And that's the end of today's case. As always, I appreciate your support for my work. If you subscribe, like, and share this video, it will help me continue creating content. This was another episode of Unreal True Crime. See you soon.